I'm really interested as to how AllianceBernstein thinks about pricing this in, if at all. How are you looking at the opportunity to access the Chinese market going forward?
Well, I think China has always remained one of the most strategic markets and will remain so, and particularly in the AI world. If you think about AI, how we think about the scale benefit, right? The ecosystem. U.S. has always been, for a big part, the origination of innovations, particularly technology innovations. But China has done a phenomenal job in terms of using it and then using it at a very large scale. When you think about in the AI context, having an ecosystem globally is a very important strategic advantage long term. The more data you have, the better the model becomes. And that's not just for China alone, but think about globally. Who wants to be the dominant standard? Having the operating system, that layer, is very, very strategic for most companies longer term. So that's why we're thinking, that's what Jensen said, that's what Lisa Su at AMD said, and then I think that's how we're thinking about it, which is who will be the dominant AI standard? We want to have one global ecosystem, or are we going to have different forks into the future?
But these so-called dumbed down, I mean, President Trump even called them obsolete chips being allowed into China. Does that ensure that they remain part of the tech stack?
Well, it's too early to tell for the most part. I think necessity usually drives innovation. So when we don't export anything, then it probably is a greater incentive for China to develop its own domestic ecosystem that's completely separate. So this is a bridge, I think, in my mind, that we can bridge that big, drastic action that we've seen early on this year. I think China does have advantages to some extent, and it has a more newly developed power infrastructure system. It has vast amount of data, and it's developed a lot of these open source, models that they are really rapidly pushing. So it remains to be seen, but I think it's quite important and quite strategic for the US companies to think about the global standard. Think about iPhone, for instance, right? Yes,
right.
The iPhone or Tesla, the data resides in China, we respect that. But that said, there's still lessons that we learn from adoption. At this point, if you think about a lot of the AI models, we've trained a lot of data already. But going forward, the use of AI, the use of applications, and that's new sets of data that's constantly being generated, and we don't want to not have access to that.
Lei, the Treasury Secretary indicated to us that this pay-to-play or quid pro quo of a revenue share in exchange for access to the Chinese market could be expanded. What I want to know from you is if that were to be the case with high bandwidth memory or telematics or other parts of the server design, would you then upgrade your overall outlook for, in megawatt terms or gigawatt terms, the amount of installed capacity we could see around the world?
I think it's too early to tell. I think as you've seen from a policy standpoint, there has been quite a bit of fluidity in terms of the changes back and forth. But I think it's certainly promising that, some of the really drastic assumptions that we had in April, some of it's being discounted today. So it remains to be seen, and I would say it's very early, and I would refrain from making any assumptions whether too aggressive or I would say it is definitely an improvement from the worst case scenario.